Grandmaster Ben Finegold with Class 2 and or 4. Hey, keep it down back there. Shh. God, kids. Anyway, today we're going to look at the Moscow Grand Prix, which is not yet over as far as we're concerned. For you at home, it may be a different story. For reasons which make no sense, FIDE likes to have knockout tournaments where the top 2 people qualify. Doesn't make any sense. It should be the person who first qualifies. It's a knockout. Anyway, so the 2 people who are left are obviously... frankly. Help them out there, Karen.
The 2 people...
Grischuk and...
Yep.
Was it Nepomniachtchi?
There you go. Yeah. And they're playing in the final starting tomorrow. Yeah. And so the tournament's not over. It's a knockout event which has 16 players to start, and then 8, and then 4, and then 2, and so forth. Okay. It's like the NCAA, except nobody cares. All right. So what I did was I looked at all the games, and then I took all the draws away, because who cares about that? And then, especially the knockout draws with Radjabov. Horrible. They played a total of like 20 moves in 2 games. Yeah. And then they went to the playoffs. Anyway, some of these games were played in the slow version of the tournament. And the format is you play 2 slow games. And if it's 1-1, you play 2 rapid games. And then if it's 1-1, you play 2 blitz games. And then if it's 1-1, you play an Armageddon game, which hasn't happened yet. In the first round, Dubov beat Giri, so everybody was happy, including Giri. And that's probably, in my opinion, the most interesting game of the tournament. Because Dubov played very strange in the opening, I would say giving the advantage over to Giri, and the game didn't make any sense. And I've already shown this game. I don't remember when I showed it, but I remember talking about it with either a student or a class. But anyway, in the opening, he sort of played like me. He handed over a pawn to black. So black's up a pawn. Bam! And then he didn't win it back. He just kept not winning it back. So he's down a pawn. These things happen. The problem with b4 is it loses the c4 pawn, or so I thought. Black just defended it. Now, of course, white has a nice center. White has easier development for his pieces. These pawns are all sort of weak. This knight is pinned. So white has good compensation for a pawn. And this is something I've been teaching my students for years. One day they'll listen. No, I'm just kidding. They won't. When a bishop pins a knight and the pawn's attacking the knight, then you always play h6. Otherwise, you lose a piece. You played bishop takes, which is a very strange move. Obviously, if bishop h4, what would black do then?
Guessing g5.
g5, right. Typical Queen's Gambit type of stuff. But he played bishop takes, which is a very strange move. And we have this really weird position. Now, never in my life have I said something nice about Giri. This may be the last time. Anish Giri is well known for drawing all of his games, even if it's not true. It's still funny. And one of the reasons he's known for having so many draws is in one of the candidates tournaments, which determined who would play Magnus for the World Championship, which was a 14-game, 8-player double round robin. He had 14 draws. So that'll do it. That'll give you a reputation. However, a lot of Anish's games are wild and crazy. And one of the weaknesses super grandmasters have, in my opinion, is they like too much control over the game, okay? And they actually, a lot of them are working with Janet Jackson now to learn about control. Anyway, much safer than working with Michael Jackson. So, especially now that a lot of the top players are kids. Okay, so in this position, the position basically makes no sense. Now, the top players like to lie a lot, but I don't think they know they're lying. So they're just telling untruths. Some of them know they're lying. And the top players will tell you people are better now than they used to be. They're like, oh yeah, we're good, but in the 60s, 70s, 80s, those guys weren't good, just us. Okay, this is the argument that's given as to why Magnus is the greatest player ever. And I'm like, why is Magnus better than like these guys? And they're like, oh, players now are much better. So I'm like, Magnus drew 21 games in a row, which happened this year. And Fischer won 20 games in a row. Yeah, but Magnus's opponents are better, so he's better. Magnus is higher rated. Everybody's higher rated. All the ratings are higher. Magnus is usually 25 to 60 points higher than number 2, 3, and 4. And Fischer was like 8,000 points higher than 2, 3, and 4. And I could go on and on and on explaining why, obviously, Kasparov and Fischer are better than Magnus. But you don't want to hear that. You want me to diss Anish Giri. Okay, so the top players today are probably worse than the top players before, just players are worse. Okay, and the reason is the top players like to memorize 800 moves of theory and get a position where they're slightly better and then grind away. And then the computer says, hey, they made no mistakes. Wow, they're good players. And I'm like, yeah, they prepared the game with a computer for 30 moves. Okay, now, when you get positions like this, I should stand up like Nigel. When you get positions like this, where there's not preparation, where it's just nonsense, where nobody can play well, the top players don't seem very good. And if you want to beat the best players in the world, that's how you do it. There are people, if you can call them people, like Jobava, Shirov, Morozevich, Dubov, and there's more I just can't think of them off the top of my head. They don't care. They're just like, give me a position, let's go. Okay, now unfortunately, those guys generally don't make the top 10 in the world because they have inconsistent results. Although Morozevich and Shirov were top 10 in the world, and then they weren't, because the truth hurts. Okay, now if you want to be solid and super solid and draw all of your games, everybody you're playing is the top 10 in the world, you'll maintain your position. So people like Anish Giri don't like to play people like Dubov, because Dubov plays wild and crazy chess, and Dubov's not top 10 in the world. So if the result is random, that's not good for Giri. So we have this position that Giri hasn't prepared, so he doesn't play well, unlike players in the past, when they did play well, because they prepared nothing. They're just like, I don't know. Okay, so this position I can't really explain. The pawn structure makes no sense. Both kings are no good. Nobody has any development. So Dubov's happy. Now the top players in the world, the top 5, the top 10, when they're white, they want to have a boring, stable position where they're trying to win and their opponent can't win. And then Dubov's like, I can't win doing that. I got to play like this. Okay, so Giri plays c5. He wants to open the position for his bishops. Makes sense. And this knight on b1 isn't very good. So knight to d2, attacking the c-pawn. Giri's not giving his c-pawn away without a fight. c3. Put this on training, actually. They trade on c3, knight e4, takes on d4. And this move I like a lot if I remember the move. I might not remember the move. I did remember the move. Okay, and let's see if the audience pays attention to my years of lectures. What would John Nunn call that move? Is this the Simon and Garfunkel or the disturbed version of Sounds of Silence? The answer is karaoke. So you don't know this, but Karen does. While she's thinking about it, I'll tell you the story. You guys can listen if you want at home or have some coffee. So we go to karaoke occasionally, and there's a guy. Unfortunately, maybe it's not unfortunately. Some of the people who go up and sing, it's the same people. We've seen them before. They sing the same song. And there's a guy, he only sings Sounds of Silence by Disturbed. It's not the Simon and Garfunkel version, but he's memorized it. So he doesn't look at the karaoke, he just sits there and sings. He's very good, by the way. But it's always the same song. Yeah, he's good, but, I mean, can sing a different song. No, he can't. I always sing a different song because that seems stupid to me to sing the same song every time. Yeah. So anyway, bishop e5 check is called. Anybody? Collinear. Okay. John Nunn termed this phrase, when you have two of the same piece, that's the same piece, and you move towards the piece and don't take it. Probably more often with a rook. Your rooks are on the c file, and you play rook c7 instead of rook takes rook on c8. confusing the opponent. Now, why does this have a term? Who cares? According to John Nunn, and I agree with him, the opponents don't see those moves. They don't see you moving towards their piece and stopping. Computers don't care. But humans are like, whoa. So maybe when Dubov was picking his bishop up and going that way, Giri was like, bishop takes a6, and the bishop stopped. Now, obviously, you can't move the king. You can't play queen d7. You can't play knight d7 because your bishop's hanging, so you have to take. And now this activates the rook quite a bit, and it stops the black knight from developing. So I like this move a lot, this bishop b5 check. Okay, the game still makes no sense. However, white can castle and black cannot. Also, we're on move 16, and black is set up for the next game. Now, why did black do this? Black is up a pawn. And white's f6 pawn might be lost. Black does have a bishop. Black has two connected pass pawns in the center. So this position is too difficult. I give you lots of advantages for white, lots for black. This is a slow game. This wasn't one of the rapid games, but still too hard. Okay? And if you're Dubov, a lot of people like me, between my strength and Dubov's strength, we're playing in the World Open, the National Open, the Chicago Open, Aeroflot, Gibraltar, the strong open tournaments that have 10, 20, 30 GMs and somebody wins and wins 10 grand. Giri's not playing in those. Giri's playing in the super duper GM tournaments, Tata Steel, etc. And he's trying to get 11 draws and 3 wins. Okay? So these kinds of positions that make no sense, Dubov has those all the time. Dubov can't have 11 draws and 3 wins. Then he won't get any prize money. Dubov has to have 11 wins and 3 draws. Okay, so Dubov and other players like that, they need to win, 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 win. Giri needs to draw all of his games and maintain his position in the world. Okay, if Giri's not going to have 7 wins and 2 draws in a 9-round tournament because everybody he's playing is the same rating as him. So these kinds of weird positions, I have them occasionally. Dubov has them occasionally. The top players in the world are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Boris Spassky would say, these are the positions where you agree to a draw. He says, you don't play these positions. You analyze these positions. Okay? That's when he was older and playing a lot of tennis. Okay? You can't play. It's too hard. Too many blunders. We can analyze with an engine. Then we'll play pretty well. Okay. So continuing. Queen d5. That makes sense. Queen takes d4. And Giri doesn't want to trade queens. He takes the pawn, stopping white from castling. So black somehow is still up a pawn. Although that seems pretty dangerous to let white have 3 pieces out to 1. Black can't castle, and it's white's move. A little dangerous, yeah? Knight c3, establishing material equality. And after bishop b4, my favorite move of the game, which I've already shown Karen, but there's no way she can remember because it's too crazy. She won't remember something this crazy. Too difficult. What's the craziest looking move you ever saw? That's what white did.
Rook a4.
That is crazy because the rook's not defended. So that would be bad. Black could just take it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Your move was crazier than Dubov's. Good job. I'll give you a hint. The move rhymes with avoid a hassle.
Well, I mean, I guess wins that castle.
Castle. The safest.
Oh, man.
You can't castle the other way. It's illegal. Did you expect that?
No, I did not.
You're right. So now white's threatening queen d8 mate because I said so. And if black castles, queen g4 is going to be mate. So the truth hurts. Here comes mate. And you might think, isn't black mating with bishop a3 and queen b2? Then white saunters up to d3 with his king. Can't be safer than that, right? It's hard to checkmate white because black doesn't have any pieces out. Okay, he played queen a5. The queen can go to a1. It can go to a3. The knight's attacked. And he stopped queen d8 mate. See, Giri's pretty good. Huh? Threatens everything, defends everything. Knight b5. You can't take the knight because queen d8 mate.
Now, do you think that Giri saw the queenside castle a bit ahead?
I don't know. Good question. I mean, you would think at this level they see everything, and he might have thought queenside castle, that's crazy. And then Dubov did, he said, oh, well, I guess it's okay. They might have analyzed more than that, but I don't know. Like, it's so crazy, a queenside castle with no pawns there. Knight a6, queen d7, king f8. King b1, always play king b1. Stopping queen a2 and queen a1. Bishop a3, threatening queen b4 check. He doesn't care. Just walks his king out. Black walks his king out. Threatening rook g3 check, queen f7 check. Scary, isn't it? Yeah, queen check. Rook f8, stopping queen f7 check. Good job. And obviously white's winning. White's dominating the board, and black's rook on h8 is trapped, the king is trapped, the knight on a6 is no good, etc. Mainly etc. And he plays h5, attack. He's trying to get his rook out. Queen d4, if I remember the analysis on the internet, was the only winning move. Man, Dubov's good. Now he's going to get his queen over here to g5, which is going to be annoying. Now he's threatening knight e7 check. You can't take the rook because knight e7. And then the winning move, and the game ended. I think it was two more moves, actually. Oh, no, he played king h8 and resigned. That's right. I forgot he resigned here. Yeah. See, that's when you know you're a boss. You play a move, then you resign before the guy responds. That's, you know. The winning move is very funny. This is an example of overworked, doubly so. Not Wesley so, doubly so. It's his brother. You see the f7 pawn's defended twice? You agree? No, it's not. Knight f7 check. You can't take with either rook. You take with this rook, check. Only legal move, mate. Well, I can't even play the mate. If you take with the other rook, back rank issues. However, that's the only legal moves. So you can't take with either rook. They're both doing a job over there. So yeah. So he played king h8, then he's like, oh, knight f7 wins, never mind. Yeah. So an amazing game where it looks like black castled, and it looks like white didn't castle. Lies! White did castle, and black did not. Confusing the audience. It's like, is that true? Really? Yeah. So that game made no sense. It's very hard to play well. And then Giri lost, and he's out. I don't like the format. I don't like this knockout format. Let me tell you why I don't like it. Okay? It's not because the guy that I like wins or loses. I would root for Dubov. Okay? But these are the best players in the world. They're flying around the world playing in tournaments. You play 2 games and you go home? I don't like it. I don't like it. If a 2750, 2800 GM goes to a tournament, I don't want him there for 2 days and go home. Like, hey, come hang out, have some simuls, let's go to dinner, you know, not, yeah, okay, you're out. And then we had a US championship like this. We've had more than one. You got like 16 top players there, then 8, then 4, then 2, and everybody leaves. And I'm like, what is this? Where's everybody? Right now, it doesn't happen to me. I'm not the one that's left, so it doesn't matter. I'm not one of the final 4. But I've played in those knockouts where you play, you lose, then you leave. And then if you're still playing in the tournament, it doesn't feel like a tournament anymore. Now you got 2 guys there, Nepo and Grischuk, and everybody's else gone. So it's weird. Like all your homies are there, or all 2750, then it's you 2. Like, where'd everybody go? So it's like a weird feeling. If I was watching the tournament, I'm like, where'd Nakamura go? I came here to watch him. He lives in America, and I live in Moscow. I don't get to see Nakamura. Well, you're not going to see him anymore. He lost his match. I'm like, damn, he was here for 3 days. So I don't like this format, and I don't like the knockout format of 2 games. 4 games, 6 games, 8 games, maybe make them faster. 2 games? What am I, Ben Simon? The only person who can get that joke is Ben Simon and people who know Ben Simon. He likes to play 2-game matches. That's his favorite. Yeah. Weirdo. Okay, his name's Ben, so I give him a break. All right, so then Giri's out. The first game was a draw. That was game 2. Go home. Okay, now Nakamura beat Radjabov, and this was also one of my favorite games. This was one of the rapid games. Now, they played 2 draws immediately. Like, the games lasted 10 minutes. And then they played the rapid knockout, and Naka said, oh boy, rapid knockout. Okay, and then I don't care about the beginning of the game. It's too long. I want to show the end of the game. Okay, Naka has the passed pawn because I said so. The engine was saying the game was about equal or white was a little better or unclear. And then in time trouble, Radjabov got outplayed. Now here, white might play knight e5. That's annoying. So Radjabov never played.
F6.
F6. And you're like, excuse me, you always say never play F6. I don't understand why. Why do you keep saying that? Now you're going to find out why. If you were here for the previous lecture, and you were, I set up a position with the pawn on F6, and white played queen b3 check. Okay, so when you play F6, your king is exposed forever. You can't go back to F7. Let's see if that hurts Radjabov. Okay, knight h4. I guess the knight can go to g6, which it couldn't go to before. Who would have thunk it? And Radjabov's like, I'll defend that. Let's walk our king up. That's safe. F4, rawr. If Naka plays F5, Black's king is not looking good. It's not good. Black's king is getting in trouble there. King E8. What would I say? Come on, you guys know my sayings.
Oh, so setting it up.
Setting up for the next game, yeah, that's right. F5, rawr. Man, if this pawn was here, Black would have much better defense. Much better. Maybe he'll go here. Oh, no. Man, that pawn's on F6. Too bad. Now all the white squares are indefensible. Never play F6. Man, scared, aren't you? Are you scared? You scared of that? A little scared? A little bit? No. Check. Check. And now, who knows the game Nigel Short, Jan Timman? Karen's like, yeah. You're like, what? You know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
Really? The famous King March? The Nigel game? His king walks up in the middle game and he mates him with his... Yeah. You know the game and didn't know it was a Nigel game? Man, Nigel was lecturing. All right. Look at Naka. Look at him go. Oh, snap. King h5. Notice queen h1 is risky because the queen on d5 is defending h1. Right? Yeah, now how do you stop queen g8 mate? You're not 2700, so you can't do it. But he did. He resigned. Stopping queen g8 mate. Yeah, that was a great king march to safety. But f6, then white was all over him. Knight g6, f5, queen g8, queen d5, just because of f6. Terrible. Does anybody want to try to defend with black? You can try, but trying is the first step to failure. Let's turn the kibitzer on and see if it announces mate. Oh yeah. Doesn't like black's position. Says this move's the best, giving the queen away. And this is tied. And then here. Now this move is tricky, because if you take it, then you get mated. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, chess is hard, isn't it? Yeah. So instead, we play queen f7 check. Uh-oh. Then we take with check. Now you're talking, right? Now we're making sense. Yeah. Obviously, the players see that, so yeah. At the lower levels, you take this, you got like a 50% chance to win. Yeah. Here, you don't, you got no chance. So that was one of my favorite games because he walked his king up to h5 to safety. And black played f6 and got punished. So you got to like that. Go America, etc. And now we'll ask a random audience member, Andrew, what country is Radjabov from?
I'll get.
I can give you a hint. Kasparov was born there. You're like, what? We're in America, sorry, folks.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking Russia, but I'm trying to think what the country is now.
That's right. You.
Okay, so it's not Russia.
No, starts with an A.
He was born in Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan. Yeah, that's right.
I only got it because of the A.
That's right, Azerbaijan. Okay, Duda beats So. I didn't understand that game, so we'll skip that. Actually, all the games So Duda, I didn't understand any of them. They would just go on and on and on, and then somebody would resign. Yeah, it was a very strange match. Now, that game was weird, and I'm going to explain why it was weird. In fact, I'm going to show you this game. Where is the game? 2-3, 3-3, 2-1, oh, that's just the date. Okay, I'm not going to show you this game. I'm only going to show you the first 10 moves or so. Okay? And then you guys can be appalled if you want, or you can be like, no, that was fine. You could have your own opinion. Duda won the first game, and it's a 2-game match. You got all that? So that means he needs a draw. Then he wins the match. You agree with all that?
Yes.
Okay, and he has the black pieces. What opening should black play if he wants a draw? You got the Petrov, you got the Berlin, right? I know. How about the Dragon Sicilian? And that's what he did. The main line, sharpest variations where he sacks all his pieces. So black needs a draw. So on Twitter, people were tweeting, including Fabiano Caruana, said, if you told me black needed a draw, I wouldn't believe you, like from seeing like what he did in the opening. Then he sacked everything, Duda. Right? He didn't hold back. Roar, sack and exchange right away, right? So black needed a draw to win the match, and he played like a lunatic. And he ended up losing, then he lost the tie breaks. Now, in my opinion, which is a minority opinion, Duda did everything right. You have to play the way you play. If you play for a draw, as we say at the top level, you're playing for a loss. You don't play for a draw, you just play the way you play. And if your opponent's better than you, they beat you. If you're playing better than them or equal, you won't lose. If you play for a draw, you'll never win, you'll have losing chances, you're begging for a draw. Now, the Dragon Sicilian is pretty sharp, but obviously Wesley wasn't preparing for that. Wesley didn't spend all night looking at the Dragon Sicilian. He was probably like, how do I beat the Petrov and the Berlin? And then, like, black played like a lunatic, and then he lost down an exchange and endgame. Yeah. Truth hurts. Yeah. So that was a funny choice of opening, but I actually agree with it, although the result wasn't very good. Okay. So Wei beat Yakovenko from a worse position. Svidler beat Vichigov. I'll try to skip over the silly games. Dubov lost to Nakamura in the... Now, was this a rapid game or was this a real game? I forgot, but he lost... Yeah, he had no chance. Yeah, when he lost with white, then when he was black, it was horrible. Horrible. Yeah, this game was not very interesting. Then Grischuk beat So. Now this was funny. So basically played for a draw the way you would expect Duda to play for a draw. And he was like slightly worse for the whole game. 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, 0.3, 0.4, 0.3, 0.5, all in there. And then Grischuk's Grischuk. So Grischuk had a minute and Wesley had 5. So it seemed pretty good. Then they got to a rook ending that was probably drawn. And then Grischuk won, and they said, yeah, Grischuk played perfect every move. And whenever Grischuk's playing, the gawking rabble on the internet, which is you at home, oh, he has 2 minutes, his opponent has 10, now they're going to show him. And he's in the final. It's every game of his whole life. Every game, Grischuk has no time, and they never show him. They just lose. When he's in time trouble, he plays great. Okay, so they immediately got to this end game where white is slightly better due to this pawn structure. Look at that pawn structure. Not good for black. Black is a pawn up, but he's probably not going to hold on to it. Know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. And the game never ends. It's the never-ending game. In this position, I think the engine wanted him to play rook d5, not rook a8. Rook a8. If my student played rook a8, I'd be really mad at them. You don't play rook a8. That's not a move you play. I can't be mad at Wesley because he's slightly better than me. Slightly. Okay, black got his pawn back. And then nothing ever happened ever. G5 was a bit suspicious. Threatening knight e4 check. Obviously, black's worse. Black has 4 isolated pawns. And he played this rook ending, where again, black has 4 isolated pawns, so he's worse. And now he's down a pawn, and this could be a win or a draw. Either one's possible. And Grischuk has no time on his clock as usual. Black wants to trade pawns. Good idea. Yep, and now it's obviously winning. Yeah. And here he resigned. I'm going to say mate in 18, because I got to guess something. I can't get a kibitzer? Oh, it just stopped working. You guys agree with mate in 18?
Yeah.
Obviously exactly right. Yeah. Go Stockfish. See, I'm better than Stockfish. It's only at 20. It went from 20 to 21. How could it do that? How did it get worse? 19?
Now, if it gets to 17, you got to stop it immediately, right?
Well, I don't know if it's probably going to be 19. It's probably not going to be 18. I was probably wrong. Rook F8, the 18. Yeah. I think it's done. I think I was right. Yeah. I like the way you got, yeah, 18. You're right. Yeah. I think it's 18. I don't think it's going to get to 17. None of the lines are 17. All the worst moves are 18. It's like I looked before, but I didn't. Yeah. So he resigned because this pawn's too good. And Grischuk can mate with a rook, which is necessary, in these positions. So Wesley was slightly worse the whole game, and normally he draws those. And again, if Duda had done that, they'd be like, oh, why is he playing for a draw? Then you just worse the whole game. So whatever he does, they're going to make fun of him. Like, why would you play like that? So I recommend when you need a draw to win your match, you should have white. That's my recommendation. Black is tough because you're worse anyway. The guy has to win. A lot of times when you're playing in a Super GM tournament and you're equal or slightly worse with black and both players are 2750, 2800, the guy might just say, okay, draw. But if he has to win to keep the match going, you're going to be there a while. So now you realize in this situation that it's never going to be a draw. You got to just play forever. So it's unfortunate. Okay, and then this game was interesting because Svidler played wild and crazy, which is not his MO. Svidler usually plays really boring with both colors. And Svidler, the first game was a draw. Svidler was white. This is game 2. I thought they would draw and go to playoffs. And Svidler played like a lunatic. Like, he draw would have been fine, but he's like, plays crazy. So he played like some kind of Benoni, weird Benoni, strange, sort of like transposed to a Benoni. And I'm like, Svidler plays the Benoni? When does Svidler play the Benoni? So this looks like a game in like the Chicago Open where it's like a strong GM versus a weak GM. And like, the guys are trying to get some high placing. This doesn't look like two 2750s because they just don't play like this now. This is like the Dubov game where you're not in control. It's just nonsense. Like, the computer will always say white's better than a Benoni. Doesn't matter who's better. And then it's hard to play white if you want to play like an engine because the engine says every move is good. So you don't even know if your moves are the engine moves because they're all good. Okay, and what happened eventually was after breaking through on the queen's side, he went crazy. So he broke through with his rook on the queen side. White played in the center. And in this position, after b3, Svidler said, I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more. And again, for somebody that rating, he played super aggressive. Then he played all in. And it wasn't a must-win game. Now, if he lost the first game, then Svidler's play is very reasonable. But for drawing the first game, he's very crazy. Now, this position is very complicated. White has a big center. Black has the B file. Black has active play. But here he sacrifices material. Rook takes b3. I mean, if it works, that's good. But where's the long-term play? Why do you do that? Okay, so he defends his knight. And the a6 pawn is weak. There's some nice tactics here. For example, if queen takes h4, knight g4 check. It's a nice tactic. Unless you have white, then it's not very nice. And then you lose your queen and get mated. Yeah. Okay, so rook f3, defense. Good defense. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, black's down in exchange. So he's got to like do something, but he can't do anything. He broke through on the B file. White broke through on the A file, and white has more rooks. Now, this reminds me of a funny story. I believe it was 1982. I'm pretty sure it was 1982. Now, I'm going to look dumb if I'm wrong. On the internet, they're going to crucify me. You idiot, that was 80. Okay, it was the first time Korchnoi played Kasparov. When they were like, probably they played in a simul when Kasparov was a little kid. But anyway, oh, by the way, Kasparov did play Karpov in a simul when Kasparov was a little kid. That did happen. I think they drew. But anyway, Kasparov's playing Korchnoi, and Kasparov plays the Benoni. It's the sharpest position ever. And the Soviet delegation walks in, KGB and those guys. And they look, because they're all grandmasters anyway. And they're like, man, Kasparov's game's no good. White's threatening that. White's threatening that. Black's down material. What's Kasparov going to do here? And then the guy said, it's Korchnoi's move. Yeah, chess is hard. Yeah, and Kasparov won that game. It was a very famous game. One of the famous things about that game, it was from an Olympiad, was the game was annotated in Chess Life by Leonid Shamkovich, former Soviet emigre. And Shamkovich's annotations of the game were all of Korchnoi's moves were bad and all of Kasparov's moves were double exclam. When in reality, it was the most complicated game ever. And about 8 moves before the end, Korchnoi could have done a really weird perp and he blundered. Like in time trouble. Yeah. Then he apologized for his notes later. Yeah. A lot of times when somebody wins, like they played great. But all right. So in the Benoni, it's hard to tell what's going on a lot because White's king is getting attacked a lot. But here, White seems to have really good defense. White's king is pretty well defended. That rook on f3 is doing a good job. Yeah, so obviously White just took over. Black played this crazy tactic, knight takes e4, rook a8 obviously, always retreat. Queen a6 is annoying because you may have noticed the bishop is attacked and pinned, but you also might notice the rook is attacked. Did you also notice the knight's attacked because it's not pinned anymore? The truth hurts, right? Yeah. And then White said, hey, I'm a queen up. I like that. And Black resigned. So that wasn't good because Svidler didn't play like Svidler. He played like he lost the first game and he had to win this game. But instead he played like a lunatic and that didn't work. When it works, then I'm like, yay, Dubov's good. But Dubov plays like a lunatic and Svidler doesn't. So that was very strange. Like, I don't know why Svidler was playing so wild and crazy. That's not his style. Very weird. And he lost. Truth hurts. Okay, and then Grischuk beat Nakamura a couple days ago. Now, this is a very common position in your favorite opening, the Catalan. Okay, and it used to be Black always played a6 here. a6, takes, b5 here, bishop b7, and White has a lot of different moves here. Okay, I think bishop d2 might be popular now. I don't know. Maybe it stopped being popular. Okay. Another thing that white can do after a6 is play a4, stopping b5. Okay, lately, people are playing different things against the Catalan. And Nakamura played b5. He's played that before. Looks very dangerous because of this diagonal here. Okay, a4, following my rule. Always play a4 and they play b5. Then knight fd2, attacking the rook and this pawn. And he gets his pawn back. And if nothing happens, white's just better. White's position's great. Black's pawn structure is suspicious. This bishop is suspicious. This is the greatest bishop ever. And Naka's like, I have free center pawn. What's the problem? Okay, now Naka has to move his queen a lot. Okay, so black's up a pawn, but white has all of his pieces out, and black is set up for the next game. And still, Naka threatens mate. Man, chess is hard. Black has no development, but still threatens mate. Luckily, it's not mate. Queen h2 here, I'm safe. Not too safe. Knight f3, knight takes, knight takes. So black has the two bishops, and black has an extra pawn, but black's position makes no sense. Got this going on. Now, if you said name somebody in the top 15 in the world who likes random crazy positions, it would be Naka. Because Naka, before he was a super GM, was playing in all these open tournaments and beating everybody. And he wasn't doing it by being very slightly better, then clearly better, then winning 80 moves. That's not what he was doing. He was taking them to school. He was playing tricky tactics, his opponents were confused, and they resigned. Then when he started playing 2750 plus, then you got to play a little more staid. You know what I'm saying? You got to calm down. So then Nakamura calmed down and plays more normal. This is a very weird game. Black's winning a pawn. Black moves his queen every move. So that's a Nakamura kind of game. Okay? And then eventually they get to a more boring kind of game, where like one you would expect. Always repeat. Good repeating. Okay, and now they could just draw like normal 2750s, but Grischuk's like, nah, I'll play for a win. And this is very funny. Grischuk played h4, h5, h6, a favorite of which red-haired GM? Ginger GM. Put it in h. Right, so here he played h4, and in this position, he played h5, and in this position, he played h6. Put it in h. Now by this time, white's already won his pawn back. White has a passed a pawn, but also black has to watch his king. It's trapped on the back rank. So black has to watch it on both sides of the board. And eventually, Grischuk won a very, very long endgame. Very long. Pretty tactical. We should go back there. That was pretty tricky. Okay, so after bishop takes knight, instead of taking back, he plays knight c6. Then knight c4, threatening knight e3 check. And then somehow it all works out. Everybody's happy. Black's not very happy. Black's down a pawn. And unfortunately, black's down a pawn for no compensation. Now he's down 2 pawns. And Nakamura is known as a bitter ender, which I agree with. Never resign. I agree with that. Yeah. This game might have taken it too far, but you know. All right, here he resigned because he's down like 7 pawns. Yeah. So that was actually a slow game. That wasn't a rapid game. Obviously, Naka's like, if I draw this, going to go to the rapid, and he's pretty happy. But he couldn't draw with black on the slow game. Unfortunate. So basically, Nakamura is a favorite in almost all of these matches because you expect 1-1 is the most likely score. And then in the rapid, Naka's the favorite. So didn't make it to the rapid. So unfortunate. Okay. And the last game of the lecture is the game that was played a couple days ago. It was what knocked out Wojtaszek. And I was very confused, and then I was very pleased. So I'll show you and it was the moves that were back to back. I was like, I don't understand that move. Then I was like, ooh, I like that move. Like the next move. So they played the Najdorf. Wojtaszek likes to play the Najdorf, which he did in the first game. And this was a rapid game. This is the rapid. They tied this slow match. And bishop b5 check. Nepo just played d4 in the slow game. They played a Najdorf. Okay. And this is a line that Matt Larson will play with black. So I know a little bit about it. Not much. And black is still almost playing a dragon. It's close. Looks like a dragon. Okay. Now, rook d1 is the beginning of an interesting plan. If white could, he would play knight to d5. Yeah? Also, he'd play knight to c4, but black played rook c8, queen c7. No knight c4 for you. Well, if you don't go to c4 and e3, how else can you get to e3?
F1.
F1. So he played rook d1, knight f1, knight e3. See? And he did. I'm not even making it up. And he played d5, and this is like a desperation move, but it's a very strange move. So he's like, well, if white does that, that's no good. So we got to do something about that. Since white's moving his rook and knight around doing nothing, and I'm all developed, let's do something active. After here, if you take with a knight, and you trade knights, the c2 pawn's not defended. Black has a rook and a queen on the c file. If he takes with the pawn, now white's threatening d6, winning a piece. Why did black just give up a pawn? The reason is he wants to play knight e8, confusing the audience. He's later going to play knight d6, blockading the pawn, then push his king side. Carlsen style, f5, e4, etc. Black has the two bishops. Black has the d pawn blockaded. And I was like, d5, knight e8, what world am I in? That's too complicated. And then Nepo played one of my two favorite moves of the tournament in this position. Let's see which one of you can get it. What did white play? And I'll give you guys a hint. It's reminiscent of Steinitz von Bardeleben, Hastings 1895. The same kind of clearance sacrifice. Almost the same square, but not quite. Close. I'm sure you guys memorized that game, so I made it real easy for you. They're screaming it at home. This guy's like, why are you yelling at your computer, dude? What are you doing? On one of my videos recently, when I discussed the topic of Pyrrhic victory, the guy wrote in the comments, I've never screamed Pyrrhic victory to my computer before. So, over and over. Pyrrhic victory, you stupid computer. What's the only clearance sacrifice in the position?
I want to say d6.
d6, that's what he played. White wants to play knight d5. Roar! Okay, but if black plays knight d6, white's not going to play knight d5. Not ever. Okay, I really like the move d6. Really shows understanding of the position. Doesn't want the pawn, wants the knight on d5. Roar, knight d5. It's not knight d5, it's knife d5. Yeah. Okay, queen c6. Now, if I take on c2, there's some knight b6 there. I just don't know where it is. Queen c2. We have to add a kibitzer because I'm not good at tactics. Oh, it just plays queen c2 and knight c3 and says your rook is trapped. Yeah, your rook is trapped. Here comes knight e3. Yeah, that's not good for black. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And if bishop c5, your d7 bishop is hanging. Darn. That's a good trick. Okay. So he played queen c6. That's the best move. Knight e3. So basically, white got what he wanted, with the difference being there's no d6 pawn, there's no e4 pawn. Because white played e takes d5, then d6. So those pawns are gone. Now, by being gone, you could argue, yay, black got rid of his stupid d6 pawn. You could also argue, without that stupid d6 pawn, white's going to take all these pieces. You could also argue, yay, the e-pawn is gone. Black is happy. Black's going to do this. Or you could argue, no, the queen is better. Here comes the knight. E4 for the queen. So I don't know. Close. Tough decision. Bishop c5, b4, exclam. And now, according to the internets, this is where black made the losing move. Now remember, it's a rapid game, and the game is super complicated. Now, you at home, and you in the audience, would take the knight, and then white would play.
97 check.
Bam! Winning the queen. So that's not a good move. So he played bishop to d6, and I thought bishop d6 was the losing move. But here bishop d6 seems forced. So what are they talking about? Oh, I think they meant bishop c5 was the losing move. Yeah. After bishop c5, you can't take the knight ever because of knight e7 check. So that move makes no sense. Bishop c5 is just a blunder. Yeah, because now here comes white. Man, that's not good. Now here's what's funny about this. I wasn't watching this game live, and I turned it on around here. And I'm like, yeah, I like white. I like white's knights. I like the queen side. I like it, right? And the computer said something insane like +6. And I was like, I don't like it that much. But I guess black's queen is trapped. The knight on e8 can't move because you lose all your bishops on the d file. The knight on d5 is killing you. b5 is crushing you. c5 wins immediately, right? Yeah, so maybe it is +6. So bishop c5 was an incredible blunder because after b4, you have to play bishop d6 defending e7, then c4, and here we come. There's that 3-2 majority. c4. Okay, let's go back. He played b6, a5. Yeah, the idea is here comes c5. So if you take, I can just play c5. e4, confusing the issue. It's not too confusing. Yeah, you can't play queen takes b6 because of c5. Yeah, that's a good queen side he's got over there. That's a very nice tactic. He's attacking the rook and the knight, and when he takes it, little fork. That's the kind of thing you see in my games here at the club, not 2750. Yeah, but he was just lost, so, and then he resigned down a piece. And that game enabled Nepo to go to the final today, or tomorrow. And the funny part is, yeah, that game was played yesterday. The funny thing is, if I'm correct, I think I'm correct, that was the only game that he lost the whole event. And he's out. And the only thing that I know that's comparable, in the US Championship one year, they had a Swiss, then they took the top players from the Swiss and they played knockouts. And one of the guys who lost no games and made it to the knockout and lost no games, he did not win. And truth hurts. He didn't lose any games in the knockout and he got knocked out. Anybody? They're screaming in the home how it happened. How do you play in a knockout, don't lose any games and get knocked out? Anybody?
All draws.
What's that?
All draws.
Why would you get knocked out if you drew?
I don't know.
Well, you're right, but why? Armageddon. So when draw, Armageddon game where black gets draw odds and he had white. And he was winning that game, but he drew it. That was the game Shulman-Komsky.
What's the, I don't know the Armageddon.
Armageddon is, if the games are all draws, you got to do something. So they're like, all right, white gets more time than black. 5 minutes to 4, 6 minutes to 4. Then if it's a draw, black wins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they did an Armageddon game. He was white in Armageddon game, and it was a draw, so he lost. Right. So he didn't, and he actually gained 50 USCF rating points that tournament. When you're 26, 2700, that's hard to do. Yeah, but still didn't win the tournament. Man, chess is hard. So that was the only game that Wojtaszek lost, and you're out. Lose one game and you're out. No losing. Now, to be fair, Grischuk and Nepo have not lost any games, and they're in the finals. So there you go. Yeah. It's hard when you're playing 2750s, 2800s. It's a fast time control, and you still never lose. Those guys are good. Yeah. Guys are better today than before. Yeah. All right. All right, that was my crazy lecture. You can decide at home, crazy like a fox or crazy like Fox News. Futurama, don't sue me. Right? All right, see you guys next time. Bye.